Noted.
All right. I believe we are live.
Maybe.
Let's refresh, just to make sure.
And mute.
Mute what?
Go mute the thingy.
Awesome.
Zero views.
Well, we're just starting out. It looks like I believe we're going. I'm going to start the recording just in case it's not streaming. And if it's not, that's okay. Welcome to the Wildheart Podcast, where passion meets purpose. Mm-hmm. What are we talking about today?
Today we are going to be discussing the challenge of, what was it? Sorry, things got moved around. Okay, there we go. The challenge and art of balancing business with family life, especially. Oh. Whoa.
Sorry, no, that was the last topic. You're
moved
right.
Around. I'm like, these don't sound like what we discussed.
No, they aren't at all.
Scroll up.
Yeah, that was last week's.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Overcoming homeschooling stigma, instilling a love of nature, and ensuring children's future success is what we're actually talking about today.
That's what we want to talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you are live, feel free to chime in with your own experiences, and we also want to hear about what everybody else is doing. But first thing, I guess we'll just catch up quick. It's been a minute, and I guess I'm going to call them the lost episodes because we've been recording podcasts for like 3 months now, I think.
I remember we had some Thanksgiving ones. We had some Halloween versions.
We started last Canadian Thanksgiving. So Canadian Thanksgiving, we started recording podcasts.
I don't know if it was probably before that. I think it was in September.
And I have the files. I have the audio, and I have a lot of the other things that, you need to put everything together, but I've never actually had the time to edit everything yet. Or made the time to edit. I might have had the time, but I haven't made the time to edit. And that's on me. And I will edit them and put them out. But I've come to realize there's a lot of like timely things in them that might not make sense, especially around the Christmas and the Thanksgiving episodes.
Halloween.
We talked about our garden and how it fall. Anyway, they'll come out eventually.
Next year, around the times that no, just kidding.
Or they'll be the lost episodes.
Just have a whole vault of them released at one time.
Yeah, all of them are options. That being said, I'm just going to readjust the camera here. Camera number 2 or number 1.
It was fine the way it was.
There we go.
Yes.
Yes, apologies to all the noise.
To all the noise.
For all the noise. Nonetheless, it's been a little while since we have recorded those podcasts. It's a new year.
Yep.
How are you feeling about the new year?
So far, so good.
Yeah, I feel that we've both been super productive this new year. And it's not because we've done any New Year's resolutions or anything. It's just because we've refocused, I feel.
I don't believe in resolutions. Mostly because I think that when you set yourself a resolution, it's like there's this energy around resolutions where most people will fall off of a resolution within like the first 4 weeks of it. Mm-hmm. So I don't believe in resolutions. I always do a word or two for the year that will describe kind of like the energy or the intention that I want to set. And then I kind of have ideas of like what I want to accomplish, what I want to see happen in the year, and kind of go from there. So they're not really resolutions. They're kind of more like hopes and dreams. And then I kind of go off of that.
Makes sense. It goes off this evening. We're going over extrinsic versus intrinsic motivations with the kiddo before bedtime, and it was one of those things where, I mean, she's 4, so it's a pretty deep subject for a 4-year-old to integrate. But the concept of like, hey, do you believe it, or do you believe it's outside of you? You know, it's one of those like, do you want to do it for mama and papa? Probably, but it's better if you believe it yourself. Mm-hmm. And just kind of that baseline concept. It's, and going back to your resolutions, I feel most resolutions, New Year's resolutions, are extrinsic, and you know, whether it's to look good or whatever, and opposed to internalizing it, which is kind of what you're doing and what I do generally speaking as well.
Yeah.
So, anyway, yeah. Shall we move on to our topics?
Yeah, it was just the only other thing I would say with that is just like, yeah, I don't necessarily say I would feel like I feel productive. I feel like I am accomplishing the things that I've set out to do. Like this is what day, so this is day 31.
A month-ish.
Well, it was 28 days for the first month. And then, because it's like 4 weeks. I'm like 4.5 weeks into a fitness program. Mm-hmm. That has been really good and really fun. And so it's been 31-ish days, 32 days maybe of like consistent like movement.
Yeah.
Throughout. And that's been really good. And then of course I finished a course for my herbalism diploma, which was really good. So yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like we've kind of hit the ground running. January for me is usually very slow time.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, historically it's been a very slow time, but it feels very quick and purposeful.
Well, it's always good.
Yeah.
I empathize and I feel it. I feel it within the household, and I appreciate it. So, going back to the main topics, mm-hmm. Homeschooling and
the stigma of it, instilling a love of nature and ensuring our children's future success.
Yeah. Some of the main misconceptions, I would say probably number 1 is the academic performance. So like, I know when the idea first crossed my mind, it's like, well, yeah, it's great to be able to really impart everything onto your kid, but you know, what if I don't teach them well enough? Are they going to, you know, be outperformed by other kids? And you know, what about all the tests that they have to take? Will they be able to pass them? And before actually realizing what homeschooling was. Mm-hmm. It's one of those. Go ahead, if you have any input.
Well, as we have written down in our little notes here, studies have shown that on average, homeschooled students tend to outperform their peers in standardized tests. And I don't know about you, but standardized tests are so important in the traditional school system because, you know, that's how they get their funding and stuff, right? So,
well, I mean, how else? I mean, with the ratio of kid to teacher, it's like, I don't want to turn into like a teacher bashing podcast here, but it's more difficult for any to really gauge what each kid is doing on a one-on-one basis. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it be every day or every hour. I mean, of course teachers have an idea of how the kid's doing, but it's just so much easier when you have a standardized test to be like, they're doing good in this and they're not doing good in this according to this test. Mm-hmm. And according to the rest of the class, how they're following along. Yeah. Meanwhile, they just might need a little bit more help in certain areas, which it's just one of those things.
Well, and yeah, like when you've got a class of 25 to 30 students and you are one teacher, if you only have them for maybe one subject, like let's look at, I know it's a little bit more advanced, but let's look at high school for a second, right? You have maybe 45 minutes to an hour with these students once every other day. Mm-hmm. So your time divided by each student for that 1 hour, like, it's not a lot. And it kind of makes it one of those things where, like, at home, we can really personalize our attention to focusing on the areas that, you know, our children need more of a boost in, or maybe not even necessarily that they need a boost in, but like where they might have their interests, right? Like
they're focused on, even like,
yeah,
it's you know, we're really heavy right now on the reading aspect of things, and you know, she's definitely taking a liking to it. But I just kind of, last weekend, I kind of rehashed just some of the numbers. Just, she knows how to count, obviously. Maybe not obviously, but our kid knows how to count. And, you know, she gets caught up after 29. She goes 29, 2010. and
she's
the
not wrong.
And yeah, that's, the logic is there. And you know, I'm grateful for that. But it's just one of those things where, you know, I feel like that's been on the back burner for a little bit, and you know, I feel like I'm just going to rehash some of that, because it behooves us too, obviously.
Yeah.
But because she's been so focused on the reading aspect, there's a lot to take in there. So it's just, everything is reading and just focusing on all those aspects of things.
Yeah. I know one of my biggest things with just my thoughts of stigmas or misconceptions about homeschooling has always been the socialization piece. I know when you were very much on board with the homeschooling, and I was kind of like, I don't know. My biggest thing was always the socialization. How are we going to socialize our child? And all that stuff. And really, if we sit down, and I can't remember where I heard this, but if we sit down and think about it, when other than in
School.
like traditional schooling, do you sit down in a classroom full of
20 to 30
20 to 30 people of the same age? Like, never.
and all listen and all do, you know, what one person, maybe the military, but like,
no, but you wouldn't even
not even
have
the
all
same
the same
age.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's just one of those things. It's counterintuitive to real life.
Yeah, and like,
and my argument always has been, you know, there's always extracurricular activities or the like, which we've like discovered a lot of even during day programs. So it's not even just evenings, where, you know, whether it's sports or community activities, you know, it's the things that we want to do and impart with onto our kids, of the things that we like to do, you know. So there's always going to be somebody there, and family, and if not family, then there's others.
yeah, like, I mean, I've joined a couple of homeschooling groups and unschooling groups on Facebook that have given me opportunities to be able to meet people. I found a lot of interpretive programming through different provincial parks and other areas in and around our city. Yeah, like, it's definitely one of those things where now that I've started looking for it, I've been finding it. You know, and it's kind of like when you get maybe you bought a Honda, and then suddenly you start seeing the model of car that you've
everywhere.
Been buying, like, everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's the your focus is what you get kind of thing.
Yeah.
The next topic I might just scooch along to here is just instilling a love for nature in the kids and how important it is. I don't feel that they have the opportunity, or kids have the opportunity, to really delve into nature as much as they can in a homeschool environment. And I think it's really important to get out in the world and see nature and connect with nature and just kind of see what's out there on a daily basis if you can. You know, we live in a very cold climate, so it's a little more difficult in the winter, but I think we still make a point to do it. And it's just a matter of practicing.
Yeah, I know one of my things that I have found in the last couple of years is that 1,000 hours outside type of deal.
Can you explain that for people who might not know?
So essentially, the goal over a year would be to have 1,000 hours outside.
Mm-hmm.
Rain, shine, whatever. And like you can do a quick Google search. There's like many different like calendars or like graphs or what's the word I'm looking for? Different like things that you can use to follow along and get a certain number, like to be able to plot or track the number of hours that you're outside. So for us being in Canada, it's one of those things where like our winter months we might have less time outside, where it might be only a half an hour or 15 minutes, especially when it's like minus 40 outside.
But it turns out to roughly 2.739726 hours every day.
Just round up to 3. It's 3 hours every day. But, like, you know, in the summertime when it's nicer out, we might be spending more time outside, like 5 hours or so, right? Like, but yeah, the goal would be to, when you have, and I can't remember what the science was behind it, but it was like, if you have that much time outside, you're going to be all better.
You get your vitamin D, you get fresh air.
Well, and the sunlight helps with melatonin and serotonin production in the body. Actually, I think it helps convert the serotonin, which is the feel-good brain chemical, into melatonin, which is the happy, I'm going to help fall asleep chemical.
Yeah, and it also regulates your circadian rhythm just because of the daylight hours. If you, if you're familiar with the Huberman labs, he's very big on getting that sun into your eyeballs at scheduled times during the day to activate your circadian rhythm in the morning, and then there's in the evening too, because just by the nature of where the sun is in the sky, it activates different things in your head to make sure you go to sleep and wake up on time.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, obviously that's a lot of the health benefits. But
I think too, like, nature can be such a good I don't want to use the word teacher, but it can offer a lot of different lessons. You've got your science, you've got your ecology, you've got conservation.
You got walking and you fall on your butt because you tripped over a stick and you weren't looking where you're going. That's a teacher.
Yeah. There are so many different options. Like, right? Like, we've been growing food in our garden. I've been growing herbs. So we get to see that when you plant the seed grows, right? And this is the fruit that comes off that plant or whatever, right? But beyond that, we could then use that to teach different parts of the plant or how pollination works. We can expand into the different pollinators, or, like, for example, we had caterpillars on... Yeah. Every year we've grown carrots, we've gotten the black swallowtail butterfly, and they like to hatch on our carrots, and then they create little caterpillars. The caterpillars then, we bring them inside, a couple of them at a time, and we watch them go into their cocoons, and then they turn into butterflies. And so we can teach that whole cycle, and like, there's so many other things that you can learn from nature, that
including science.
Well, yes, including science. That is so important, right? Like, we could even expand into
animals and different. Ideally to get into hunting, then getting into the biology of the animals that we may or may not be successful at getting, and then getting how that animal travels from the wild into the kitchen, and how we can cook it, and then there's the cooking aspects of it, and like super practical, hands-on, and all of those benefits that come with that.
Yeah.
I know we've had lots of conversations in the past about Montessori versus unschooling versus all the rest, but I mean, at the end of the day, as long as the kids are learning, that's really the goal.
I think my goal is to instill maybe not all of the knowledge, but instill a lot of knowledge that they would need if society ever fell apart.
Yeah.
Zombie apocalypse hits, I know how to heal things. I know where to find food.
Yeah, and it's not just, oh, we have a stockpile of cans in the basement or something.
Yeah.
It's,
They become one with nature and run off being feral children.
okay. The last point I guess we'll touch on is just like respecting nature and just the stewardship aspect of things. There's a sense of responsibility towards the environment. We're not throwing litter on the ground. We clean up after ourselves, and just not only taking care of nature, but it just understanding of being able to take care of not only nature but yourself and your home and your family.
Yeah.
And like all these things are connected. Everything is intertwined, opposed to segregated science subjects of biology and chemistry and physics. They're all real life, and this is how they're all interconnected. You don't have to segregate them. This is just life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think one of the other things too that I know I have thought about is what type of opportunities or what does the future look like for our children after we've homeschooled them, right? Like, I know I keep saying like eventually, or not eventually, but like kind of like we'll take it year by year and we'll see how we're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've also kind of given myself, I could probably get them through elementary school, and then once they hit junior high, we'll see, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really, I mean, you can homeschool all the way up to post-secondary, and I know it's a big conversation topic, and a lot of the homeschool groups that I'm a part of is like, how do we prepare the kids for like post-secondary school, so going to university, going to college, and things like that, and how does the information that they learn translate into those future opportunities?
Yeah, and just even mentally preparing from like a homeschooling environment into the classical education system at that point. Just being aware, like they aren't necessarily mentally prepared even for that transition all the time. And being able to like get them ready for this is the first step of like, hey, you might not appreciate all of this and you don't have to, but this is what you have to do if you want to be successful in what you want to do. But you don't be beholden to it, kind of thing.
It's interesting actually, because there are, and I don't know, I don't have sources, I'm sorry, people who want to have sources for everything, but there are actually a lot of conversations that I've had with people who've said that homeschooling their children, and I think this probably depends on what flavor of homeschooling you do, but the homeschooled kids actually do better in the university settings because they aren't just sat down and be like, memorize these things. Yeah. Right? I mean, that is, some people do schooling at home where it's literally, here's your workbook, we're going to learn this like you would in school, but I'm going to teach it to you. But the kids who have that intrinsic motivation, going back to like when we were talking about it in the beginning,
call back.
It actually prepares them better, because I know when I got to university, I had no concept of actually how to study, because I'm a pretty decent student. You can lecture something to me and I'll probably retain about 75%. If I actually cared to open up my textbooks and read them, I'd probably retain a little bit more, but, C's get degrees.
I was one of the, I'm one of the opposite people where I have to study relentlessly to be able to get the same marks as somebody who just listens there and gets those marks. So we're essentially the opposite, the yin and the yang to the study world, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the futures and opportunities, I feel like homeschooling is better suited for adaptability and resilience, just because the goal for me, and I imagine for you, is just to develop those skills to be able to think critically and be able to adapt. You know, there's the I can't remember where I heard the story, but essentially there's the people that need the recipe to make the soup, and if they're going down the recipe and they miss there's an item there that's, you know, they don't have the ingredient for, they don't have the critical thinking or the adaptability to be able to substitute something in. And then there's the people who just are so adaptable that they'll like glance at the recipe and they'll just make the soup kind of thing. And it's the second person that, you know, I'd like to raise, essentially. So
Well, and I think too, like, one of the things about being in a public school system versus, or I shouldn't even say public, in the traditional school system versus like homeschooling. Traditional school, you are basically put into a mold. You sit down, you shut up, you do this thing. This is how you're going to. You're basically taught how to be an employee, right? Whereas, and I'd also say too, like a lot of my creativity was just shot going through a traditional school system because it wasn't important, right? Yeah, we did arts and crafts, but it wasn't fostered. It wasn't something that was like, you know, ooh, you should really work on this because it could bring you blah, 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 right? It was like, nah, you gotta be a doctor, a teacher, a nurse, a blah, 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 like practical jobs, right? And I think it's very important to note, too, that a lot of entrepreneurs tend to be very creative individuals.
yeah, and they tend to be like the C students that, or D students that like rebel against the school system and then end up doing their own thing. And not everybody who's a C and D student is an entrepreneur, but the ones that are tend to do better.
Well, and just going off of that creativity piece, right? Like that also adds in the adaptability. And I think too, like in homeschooling, we can foster that creativity. We can foster that adaptability. We can foster that
practical knowledge that's needed for those sort of things. Like,
right?
Oh, this is how you put together a business plan. This is how you pitch your idea. Go sell this X to your friend over here, and you know, let's you know, work on those skills of like. Half of it's just being able to sell.
Well, and I'm not saying that, you know, obviously our kids need to be entrepreneurs, but like, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I mean, the goal is for them to discover what they want to do in life, and the path that is the best suited path for doing what you want to do in life is entrepreneur life. And it's one of those things like, hey, if you work for yourself, nobody's telling you what to do, and so you have to make it work, and you get to do what you want to do at the end of the day. Whether it's successful or not is up to you at that point. So yeah, all in all, as a recap, I think, you know, homeschooling's great, but
Done.
Yeah.
No, like I think homeschooling, there's a time and a place, right? Like, I understand that not every parent can sit down and do it, or even be able to have the opportunity to teach their kids, right? Like, not everyone can work from home. Not everyone can stay home with the kids, right? We just happen to have a situation where
we've,
you know,
planned our life around this idea at this point, and we're that committed to it that, like, if you can think of a way that makes it work, you will make it work, essentially. You know, if you're committed enough, you will make sacrifices, and you will do what needs to be done. If you know 5 people that, you know, can take one day off, or you know, their work schedule is one day off a week, that isn't a weekend, you know, maybe you can make it work with 5 friends that you have similar perspective and views on, and that you trust with your children. You know, it's one of those things. I think, it's. I'm at a loss on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's just something that, like, If you can do it and you want to do it, awesome. I'm never going to tell someone that they should or should not, or that like traditional school is, better or worse than homeschooling.
Yeah.
It's what works for us. It works for our family. And like I said, we'll take it 1 year at a time. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we're very committed to it right now. 2 years from now, when both the kids are grown up a little bit more, we might change our tune, but I don't believe that will be the case. I think the more we get used to it and the more we have practice in it, the better we'll get, and just like with anything. So,
yep.
Don't be discouraged if you're just starting out in this line of thinking. There's plenty of resources out there. I like the Montessori reading. I like the Montessori stuff. You like
I don't know. I've just been talking to a lot of homeschoolers and unschoolers on Facebook and reading posts on there. There's been lots of really good books that they've suggested that I really wish I had a list of right now.
The one I will recommend, it's Montessori, but it's one of the there's Maria Montessori, and basically any of her books is what I would recommend. But the one recently I came across is The Secret of Childhood, and it really it's one of her last books that she wrote, and it kind of just touches base on a lot of the ideas that what we're doing in the classical system, I'll say, is very wrong. You have to have the freedom for the kids to self-discover and have the kids really lead in every aspect of their own learning, because you can't stop a kid from learning what they want to learn, is really what it comes down to. Anyway, it covers the teacher's role versus the child's role, how best to prepare your environment for learning, and even sensitive periods where the kids will actually be receptive on picking up on certain things. So that is my recommendation for today.
I've got a couple.
Okay.
So maybe
we'll make this a book club. You get one recommendation.
One? I don't know. I can't just pick one. I have two.
Go for it.
Okay. So there's one, and I will preface by saying I have not read these books yet, but they come highly recommended from many people throughout a couple of different groups.
You were finishing your course, so
yeah.
That's your, as of late, that's your focus.
So How Children Learn by John Holt is one. And then the other one actually is Unschooling to University by Judy Arnold.
Fun.
And I know that Judy, because she is in a couple of the groups, she is offered to basically ship you. You don't have to pay for the book, you just pay for shipping, which is about $25 anyway, so book being about $25. But these are also available on like through Kindle and through Kobo, so you can read them electronically. And also you can get a physical copy of the books if you want.
Awesome.
So I know I've been more ebooks these days.
Yeah, with your little Kobo.
With my little Kobo. But yeah, so those are a couple books. I mean, there's a whole host of books that I want to read through, but I just have not had time yet.
Yeah, we have 2 kids, so sometimes it's hard to pry out time. That's why we're live streaming this every second week.
Oh.
So we're doing this. The goal is to do it every second Wednesday. So not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after. And it'll be in the evenings, so roughly about the time we started today,
10 o'clock Central Time.
After the kids go to bed. And if you want to join us for these future live streams, please do. We'd love the back and forth. We kind of scheduled in an interactive Q&A segment today, but the acknowledgement that nobody's watching right now is A-okay. And this is something that we're building up and we're building towards. So if you want to be part of this journey, and if you want to join us on this journey of how we're going to go build a homestead, how we're raising the family, please follow, subscribe, and join us. Any final parts?
Join us. We have cookies.
That's a new one. Subscribe for cookies.
What kind of cookies? I don't think my cookies will make it in the mail.
We could freeze dry them.
Oh,
have you ever tried freeze? I wonder how that works.
Anyways, before we get off topic, we should probably end it
Next
here.
episode, freeze drying cookies.
Goodbye, guys.
Thanks. Take care. See you guys later.
Stop streaming. There you go.